2000s, we had significant investment in new plant, in coal plant capacities. With the adoption of the Paris Agreement and growing political as well as public awareness, that makes civil society's participation so important. Germany appointed a coal commission to manage the transition away from fossil fuels. Since then, we've made steady progress towards our energy transition goals. I can give you a few examples. First, Germany's Climate Action Program 2030 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 55% until 2030. Phasing out coal is a crucial component of this strategy. Second, the so-called Climate Action Act, German Climate Action Act, mandates the gradual phase out of coal to achieve these targets. And last but not least, third, the 2020 Coal Phase Out Act, so-called Kohleausstiegsgesetz, aims to end coal-fired power generation by 2038 and also outlines procedures for the decommissioning coal power plants and compensating operators. The government provides up to 40 billion euros to support regions with the coal phase out and ensure a just transition. A just transition in this context, that negative social consequences of this coal phase out shall be reduced to a minimum level. The government, and above all, the German government, emphasizes public participation and transparency in this transition process. Germany's comprehensive approach to phasing out coal is integral to its broader climate and development policies, aiming for a sustainable and low-carbon future. So without further ado, I invite you all to begin your deliberations, and I immediately have to apologize to have to leave already about half an hour and miss the discussion. Hopefully, this is an event which is not only preaching to the converted, but that we also have some still opponents to an early phase out of coal here among us. We hopefully might be able to convince to join us in our effort for this early coal retirement in Pakistan. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a successful.
Thank you, Sebastian, for your comments. The goal of today's discussion, the political economy of the coal transition in Pakistan, is to shed a little more light on the complex interplay of factors that we have. These are political factors, but they're also economic and social factors. So this is a very multifaceted issue, and we would like to start to unpack it, because at the current time, Pakistan faces a significant dilemma. It's a trade-off between energy security, which obviously Pakistan needs, but it also poses significant environmental challenges, as Sebastian highlighted in his remarks regarding air quality, and coal is obviously one of the factors that directly contributes. So the coal sector is economically significant. It provides jobs, it contributes to the economy, but this reliance on coal, especially imported coal, is also exacerbating the public financial situation in the country. So we would like to move towards a closer understanding of what the political economy of this transition actually entails. And as you also heard, that Germany has or is going through this process. There are successful experiences from around the world, in India, in South Africa, in the Czech Republic, that can also serve as important lessons or markers that Pakistan can also perhaps have. So we would like to move the conversation closer. We would like to facilitate an understanding of these factors, which is so crucial for navigating the complexities of transitioning. And with that, I'd like to perhaps pose the first question to Mr. Mirza. Shahjahan Mirza requires no introduction. He is the managing director of the Pakistan Power and Infrastructure Board. Sir, we know how incredibly busy you are. Grateful for your presence here. And I'd like to kick off the discussion today by asking you, can you please share with us the significance for coal in Pakistan from an energy security perspective, but also if you could shed some light on Thar coal development and how it is improving the livelihoods of people in the Thar region. And perhaps also if you can shed some light on what sort of corporate social responsibility initiatives are in place in Thar. Over to you, Mr. Mirza.
Thank you very much. This is an important dialogue which AAC and STPI have raised, so I congratulate them on initiating this dialogue. And it is always a pleasure, and I always come in these type of discussion to learn something as a student. So I'll try to give my input in that. And I think you have already covered the political economy, and there are economic dimensions, there are political dimensions, there are social dimensions for closing down these power plants. So in terms of coal power generation, if I cover a bit of history, not very far, if we look at before 2017, when Pakistan first coal power plant was commissioned, there was no coal power generation in Pakistan. So we had zero coal power generation till 2017 when Sahiwal coal power plant was commissioned. So starting from there on, now currently we have 12% of our power generation on coal, which just let me say this: Pakistan being country is a signatory to many international conventions, including Paris Agreement and other conventions. So as a country, I believe we are committed to meet all those commitments. But when we come to looking at the coal generation, you have, I think, partially covered. This is actually currently the backbone of our power generation system. The reason being because looking at the environmental aspect, the problems in the power sector, the higher tariff, government has already started a move actually closing down the old inefficient thermal power plants. So you would have read in the newspaper that we have already closed down, starting from 1st October, 4 oil-based and one gas-based power plant to reduce initially burden on the consumer. So this total is 2,400 megawatt, which has been shut down starting from the first of this month. So that is the first step. And going forward, we are looking towards closing down more oil-based power plants, which are old, which are inefficient, and probably which are much more polluting than the coal-based power plant. So one thing I would like to register here, and I think most of you know, that all these power plants which are set up in Pakistan, they are all environmentally compliant with the World Bank and IFC emission standards. So they are all compliant, and we are strictly monitoring, although this is a provincial subject to this, most of them are in Sindh. So the government of Sindh and the government of Punjab, they are strictly monitoring these standards. So their emissions are within the parameters set by the IFC and World Bank. But now coming back to the question which Dr. Sebastian has also raised, the cost of closing down these power plants is huge. He has given a number of 40 billion euros in Germany. So we have not worked out exact number. We did a study jointly with the STPI, and that was very initial estimate. I don't remember, but it was quite a big amount. Now the problem is, as I said, that we are trying to close down the old oil-based plants, which are more polluting than the thermal power plant. At the same time, we are trying to rely more on coal power plants, because when we move towards our next 10-year power generation plans, the good thing is we don't have any thermal power plant in that. The next 10-year generation plan, one version was submitted to NEPRA, which is being further revised. So we don't have any plan to do even a single thermal coal gas-based power plant in this next 10 years. So that is a positive sign. So closing down the oil-based power plant will actually give a reduction in the emission level. But now when we move towards the more renewable energy, our major issue is that our transmission system is very weak. It's very old and very weak. We need to do a lot of work on the transmission system to bring more and more renewable into the system. For that, the current target is actually, if we include the hydro, wind, solar, and other renewable, we have around 31% of the renewable power generation into the grid. And we want to increase it to 53, 54% by 2034, next 10 years. This target may go up when this generation expansion plan is finalized. So that already gives, I think, a good reduction in the CO2 emission. Our last IGCEP, which was approved, which was 2021 to 2031, which was the last approved, that actually projected the reduction in the CO2 emission from 356 gram per kilowatt hour to 196 gram per kilowatt hour. So that was the type of reduction we have made in the CO2 in the previous IGCEP. And I expect when this IGCEP is finalized, probably the number will be better because we are now closing down a lot of the power plants which were not previously planned. Now coming back to Thar coal, I was saying about the transmission line. So when we look at this, so what options we have? We don't have local gas. If we go to LNG, we have to spend a huge amount of foreign exchange for that, and it is quite expensive as well compared to the coal and compared to the local gas. So that option is not really economically and financially viable. So renewable, that is a very good choice. That is cheap. We know the renewable hydro is available for 3 months for the full capacity, and in the winter it goes as low as sometimes 15 to 30% of their capacity. Solar, wind, they are again the seasonal, and they are in the short time, daytime available. So we need to have something to back up the generation requirement and the demand in the evening and in the night. So looking at it from the economic and commercial perspective, the best choice is local coal. That's what I think government is also thinking. But with taking, as I said, all the precautions. So we are also trying to convert our 3 imported coal-based power plant to local coal. It will come out that technically it is feasible. We are having serious discussions with the Chinese government and the Chinese companies to convert them to local coal. But again, that will be determined within the technical feasibility and the financial feasibility when we do that. So renewable is a good choice. Government is committed to take it to 53-54% right now. Maybe it increase further. So that will reduce the CO2. Now coming back to Thar, as I said earlier, all these power plants are fully compliant with the IFC and World Bank emission standards. So we are ensuring that. But Thar has actually changed the whole dynamics of this desert. I don't know any one of you who has got a chance. I'm sure you would have got a chance to visit that. It's entirely a new world. If you go there in terms of CSR, the companies have done a lot of work. The people who were displaced from these, what they call chupis and these tents type living, they have been given 2 canal houses, proper houses in there, all of them, by the government of Sindh, and of course this is part of the tariff. And there is a community center, there are mosques, there are churches for the Hindu community, and there is a water scheme for drinking water. So that has actually changed the whole social scenario and the social living concept in Thar. All those people which were actually don't have the 2 times bread for eating. Now their girls are basically, they have done their engineering degrees and they are working in the company. And quite a few of them, it's not 1 or 2 examples, quite a few of them have done the engineering degree from the university, they are working there. Their ladies are driving the dump trucks. So that is a change in the economy. The whole situation, whole scenario has changed there. And that's, I think, a great revelation which this coal initiative has brought. The significance, as you have already said, that the main significance of the coal is the Thar coal is the energy security, number 1. Number 2, it is the cheapest resource, and you know the economies of scale as we go on expanding the mine, that the price of the coal comes down. So that's what we are looking at. But again, as I said earlier, other than conversion of 3 local imported coal plants to local coal, there's no planning in the next 10 years to actually do any new project. But closing down I think is a very big challenge, because all these plants are new. They already have anything between 5 to 7 years of loan repayment to the lenders. And the sponsors obviously have not recovered their equity because some of them are very recent commissioned in 2021 and 22. So closing down is a big challenge in terms of financial and the compensation, the social and the political impact. All these things that we need a lot of money if we want to do that. And second thing is, what is the alternate we have? So unless we develop an alternate to supply energy at a affordable cost and reducing the burden on the import of the coal, import of the FX, I think these are the big challenges which need to be covered. I don't remember. I think Ubaid might remember the number we worked out in the study we did. That was about $27 billion or something.
Even higher than that, but perhaps Hania will also sort of like to add its.
In my own assessment, this is my personal assessment. Probably I can't put a timeline, but next 10 years, we are not seeing closing down these power plants. That's what it looks like if we look on all the factors. But again, it depends that if we have something in terms of financing, because financing is a big issue. The biggest issue is the financing. If reasonable financing, cheaper financing, professional financing is available, something could be worked out actually to maybe, not all of them, some of them could be closed down if we could get an alternative and we get financing. Our dilemma is in Pakistan is that because of the credit rating and the risk factor that what the lenders look at, what we have done, we have got the financing for the coal-based power plant at LIBOR plus 4.5, 4.25%. And at the same token, we've got the financing from the solar projects and the wind projects, again, LIBOR plus 4.5%. So I think that's where we should see the international community help. And I say this on all for us that we need to work around that if we want to actually reduce this pollution and we want to reduce the coal emission and we want to encourage the renewable energy, we should be getting as a country, we should be getting some concessional financing, green financing for financing these projects. So that is a big the projects we set up in 2013, 14 and 15, the solar-based power plant and the wind-based power plant, they have tariff like solar has about 11 cents and the wind has between 14 to 17 cents. So these have actually become unaffordable, although being renewable energy projects, but in terms of economics and financials, this has become unaffordable now. I mean, the dispatcher has to look at that what I'm dispatching. Also, the commitment is must run because of the renewable energy. So I think these are all factors which we need to take. But I think that the bottom line is that we need to work seriously. We need to, as Dr. Sebastian has said, that the Commission Climate Action Act, so if we can do something like that, and maybe we can get some funding from international donors and concessional green financing, we can look at it.
Thank you very much. That was a great scene setter, and this takes me back to the time of COP26, so when UK had the presidency. And I was leading on the energy transition and working very closely with you, Malik Saab, on Pakistan's statement as well. We're very fortunate to have Pallavi Singh with us online. Pallavi represents the Powering Passport Alliance. Hi, Pallavi. And we'll be coming to you in a bit, but before we do that, Malik Saab, harking back to COP26 and the fact that you then also had signed this historic, I would say, statement for Pakistan, where the country said, okay, no new imported coal. There is a commitment to increasing the share of renewables in the energy mix and moving towards a more sustainable sort of energy supply. I'd like to ask you to share with all of us your views on coal, the energy transition, and making it a just energy transition.
Okay, thank you very much, Sophia, and I'd like to thank EIC for arranging this very important dialogue. I think Father Saab and triggered it off about the month back of this discussion about transition towards a cleaner energy future for Pakistan. And I do recall we had the COP26 in which we had actually tabled our INDC, and that is the framework for this clean energy transition and the clean future that Pakistan had envisioned. But at the base of it lies, you mentioned this, the dilemma we are facing with coal. And the dilemma basically is, Shah Jahan Sahab also elaborated on that. And basically is that, on one side, we have this huge opportunity of utilizing a local indigenous fuel in Pakistan, which would be cost efficient for our country and which would give us energy security and a backbone for our energy supply system, which is required. And it's not a small reservoir, it's 180 billion ton, and it estimates that for 200 years you could have more than 100,000 megawatts produced on it. So it's not a small reservoir for any country to have. And on the same token, we've seen at the global level huge commitments made on coal and on phasing down on fossil fuels. We had this huge debate at COP28 about whether you want to phase out or you want to phase down, and eventually, the phase down one. Because countries, when they are faced with this dilemma of having a local energy resource which is cheap and which is reliable, take that route. And the climate issue, which is very close to my heart, and I think coal is the dirtiest fuel around. There's no doubt about it. And the global trend is also that we need. That the era of coal is basically over. But yet, what we see at the global level is that last year, the amount of electricity generated by coal actually went up in spite of all the commitments that were made. And the reasons were not environmental. The real reasons were the political economy. The reasons were the Ukraine war, which stopped the supply of gas, and countries which were strongly committed to the coal phase-out, including Germany, took the route of going back towards coal. Austria, the Netherlands, UK started coal mining again in the northeast. So all those commitments which were made at the global level, and considering climate change, suddenly got stalled, for a short while, because national interest, which is the politics and the economy of the country, took over. That's the dilemma we face in Pakistan also. And you brought out the numbers. We do have coal, and we do have, but what we're lucky is that we do have the alternate available in Pakistan. We have the renewable energy route available in Pakistan, and we are committed to going that route. We have put it in the INDC that we want to turn 60% of our energy supply, and I'm glad to hear that there's nothing coming up in the next 10 years which is going to be fossil fuel based. All of it is going to be renewable. There's large hydro, there's solar, there's wind, and that is going to be 60% of our energy mix. Today we are only 14% of our supply is of coal. Most of it is on thermal coal. Half is imported, half is on thermal coal. And we want to shift over from the imported to our local coal also. And we also want to do, and we are committed to that, is that we want to have this just energy transition from, even if we use our imported coal, we want to have, our local coal, we want to have the best available technology. We want to do it at the best available technology level. And I would like to thank Badar Saab for that he brought out a report, and it addressed a question which had not been answered as yet, that what is the cost of doing that? What is the cost of Pakistan not using the burner technology for coal and going towards coal gasification, and then stepping forward and going towards a zero carbon capture and storage option? And his report brought out the numbers. And the numbers are that if we are using the same technology that we are using right now, we are at about 10-11 cents per kilowatt hour. If we take it a step further, we reduce the emissions by 70%. But the cost goes up 3 times. The cost goes to 36 cents per kilowatt hour if we are doing coal gasification. If you take it a step further and you want to go to net zero, that all the emissions coming out of the coal technology that we're using goes to zero, the cost goes up 7 times to 178 cents per kilowatt hour. But the emissions goes to zero. Now, so this incremental cost is there, and that's what I think Shah Jahan Sahab also mentioned. And that's where the devil in the detail lies. How do you get this incremental cost addressed? And the good news is that there are now instruments available in the market which are trying to do that. I mean, there's the Asian Development Bank Energy Transition Mechanism, which is we were at COP26 and we signed off on that mechanism also. So Pakistan is one of the 6 pilot countries for the energy transition mechanism. Unfortunately, that mechanism has not moved as it should have in Pakistan. The ADB has done its homework, but we have not done our homework. So I think that's something that we need to move on. And then the Joint Energy Transition Partnership, the JETP. Now that's, I think, the answer to this question of this huge incremental cost. And I think the INDC brought out a number of $100 billion. You mentioned 30 billion, so it was 100 billion. If we had to go the route of this cleanest coal technology and the renewable energy. Now, where is that 100 billion going to come from? So the JETP, I think, is the mechanism. That mechanism has been made available for some countries. South Africa, you mentioned, has got $8 billion. Indonesia has got $20 billion. But the need in South Africa is 100 billion, they got 8 billion. The need in Indonesia is 600 billion, and they got 20 billion. So still there's a big gap. So I think that's where the answer to this dilemma lies, that if we can get the money at a concessional low rate, we are willing to go the route that is mentioned in the INDC, which will use the best available technology, which will push us towards renewables. But if that is not available, then I think Pakistan has to look at the options which are in its national.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malik sir. Thank you so much, Shajan. Thank you so much, Yazid. I'm Dr. Khalid from Hospital. I will be co-moderating the brilliant moderation of Sonia. My question would be from Badr Alam Saab. Badr Alam Saab is the CEO of Policy Research Institute for Equitable Development, right? Badr Alam also a very insightful and pertinent person in third role as well. But my question would be, based on your working experience with the third community, how do you see the developments in third that have changed or transformed third, the livelihood of people for good and or the bad? And given the debate on retirement of coal power plants, as mentioned by Malik Saab as well, what other opportunities or revenue streams are being given to those people?
Thank you very much, Khalid, and thank you everyone for being here. I think on paper, what Shajan Mirza Saab has said looks very perfect. But in reality, what we see in Thar is a transformation that people in Thar do not like. And that transformation actually has operated at 4 different levels. Level 1 is that when you move into coal mining in a large scale, you definitely take away land from the people. And that land is crucial because there is no industrialization in Thar. The only livelihood source is either agriculture or livestock. And it's a very interesting fact to mention here that in Thar, per capita livestock population perhaps is the highest in the country. Thar has 1.7 million people living there, and it has more than 6.6 million livestock being reared by people. So land, and especially grazing land for this kind of livestock, is very, very important for the livelihood of the Tharis people, of the people who are living there. So when you take land in thousands of acres for coal mining, and if this process moves ahead, the amount of land will be in hundreds of thousands of acres. If you take away that land, you first of all remove all the gauchas or pasture lands or communal lands where people graze their livestock, rear their livestock. And this is one of the biggest problems that they have. And then Thar also has subsistence agriculture, which is very crucial for them because it's a drought-prone area. If you do not have that subsistence agriculture, the droughts and famines will recur in Thar very, very frequently. And that land has also been taken. So that is level number 1. Number 2 is that large-scale contamination and pollution of surface water and groundwater has taken place in Thar because of coal. And I think this is not a secret or like a conspiracy to say that coal pollutes water. It does everywhere, wherever you have coal plants, whether in Germany or Indonesia, South Africa. It's a dirty technology. It contaminates your water. It also has a massive water need. For instance, the same government has built a huge canal from Nara Canal command area to Thar coal power plants. And it takes water away from the farmers who were dependent on Nara Canal. And now that water goes to the power plant. So it's not just in Thar, but livelihood upstream in that canal system has also been affected due to the water usage and water contamination. And it's an open secret, in fact, that hundreds of acres of land has been taken over for dumping water from the mines. Now, the government says that it's not wastewater, but it really is. If you do tests on that, you will find out that mercury levels in that water and lead level in that water are extremely high. Now, again, IUCN gave it like a clean sheet in 2009, and then they never went back to test it again. We are trying to ask them, trying to motivate them to do testing once again. So this is the condition of Thar water because of the coal mining there. And the third level is air pollution, of course. Wherever you have coal mining, wherever you have coal-based power generation, and without the safeguards that Malik Amin Aslam Sahab has just talked about, air pollution is going to be a major problem. And there is a report by an organization called CREA, CREA, and they did this report in 2018 and 19. And they said that if Thar coal continues to, develop mining and coal-based operations, there is a major likelihood of increase in pollution level, pollution-related diseases and pollution-related deaths by many-fold, not by just one-fold or two-fold, but many-fold. And thirdly, the major problem that Tharis are having is exactly the transformation that we're talking about. The roads that have gone there, the modern living styles that have gone there, all of that has, disrupted the traditional centuries-old ecosystem of that entire area. And now, like in a livestock populated area, you have roads, and there are accidents in which livestock gets killed on like daily basis, and which is a major loss for the Tharis because it's their major source of livelihood. So I think these are the four levels at which Tharis are being affected by coal in a very, very negative manner. And all the theories that we hear about, or the stories that we hear about their development, I will just give you one example. You mentioned that they have been given 2 canal houses. Those houses are utterly unlivable because they were built by government contractors. Their ceilings are cracked, their pillars are cracked, and the Tharis say, we want to go back to our old huts rather than live in these 2 canal big houses because they are not suitable to their living conditions. And they are not safe today. I mean, and then that very town or village that has been settled, it's only 200 meters away from a power plant. So what kind of air are they breathing? And now, ironically, the government says, okay, we are relocating you again. So that's the story of relocation. And as far as giving jobs to the Tharis is concerned, I think they get only the most menial, most unskilled jobs at best. And the women truck drivers, honestly, I've been going to Thar for the last 4 years or 5 years. I haven't seen one driving a truck. They are probably only for the advertisements that the government does. Or probably a few of them work inside the mine or whatnot. And working inside the mine is not a joke. We do not actually know what is happening inside the mine because we cannot go there. It's a no-go area. There are no visits by the civil society, by the human rights organizations to see what happens inside the mine. And if you incidentally or coincidentally land in the mine, you have to wear special boots, you have to wear special goggles, you have to wear special masks to only visit that area. I do not know if the workers working in the mine have all that, equipment for their safety. I'm not sure because I have not been there. I have no evidence of that. So these are the conditions in which Thar coal mining is taking place. And these are the conditions in which Thar coal-based power plant, power generation is taking place. And as far as the alternatives are concerned, I think Thar has the immense potential for hybrid solar and wind both, because not throughout the year, but most times of the year, you will find very suitable medium level winds there. And for 365 days of the year, you will find solar energy there. So these are the solutions that we can think about. And as Amin Aslam Sahab has pointed out, there is international finance available for that. Unfortunately, our government does not seek that, does not actively look for that. It's kind of a joke, but I thought I would share it with you. A few weeks ago, we met a parliamentarian from the ruling party, Pakistan Muslim League, Nawal, and he asked us, what are jet fees? And I asked, why are you asking about jet fees? And he said, there's a German delegation that came to the Prime Minister, that we met the Prime Minister, and they mentioned to the Prime Minister that there is something called jet fees that allows you financing for alternative energy and climate financing and stuff like that. And all the bureaucrats and people standing around Prime Minister drew a blank. They did not know about it. So that's the sad state of affairs. We are looking at the past rather than looking at the future. If we now convert our plants today, and as Shahjahan Mirza rightly pointed out, if we start converting them today, we need to expand coal mining. We need to convert all the plants in terms of their machinery and that, all that. It will at the very least take 3 years. And then we also need to build a railway line to connect coal with these plants, whose cost I do not know who will bear. We do not know whether it will be reflected in the cost of coal. So all of these projects, if they go on schedule, they will take at least 3 years to complete. And after those 3 years, we will only be left with 7 years to take advantage of those plants. Does it make any economic or financial sense? That's a major worry that we have. Otherwise, we will be stuck with these plants for the next 30 years and will never be able to, fulfill our INDCs and our international commitments. And then we will continue to complain to the global community that why are you not giving us climate finance? Why are you not giving us debt fees? At the same time, we will never be able to, fulfill our INDC. And without fulfilling those INDCs, the global community will never come to our help. Thank you.
I think we are
with any, and in the end, we would like.
What the question is from Shahjahan? Yeah, okay. Okay, Shahjahan Singh, your next question is that given the government's current focus on promoting local coal to enhance energy security and reduce reliance on imports, what specific measures are being taken to ensure that this strategy aligns with Pakistan's long-term climate goals and NDCs? And you're welcome to give NDC involved. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, Brother Sir, I think whatever you have said, I'm not in a position to really comment on that. But one thing that which you have said in the last, that nobody has seen those mines and nobody have visited those mines. These are open pit mines. This is not the underground mine. So you might have seen the very pictures. You can go and see. I visited the area 2-3 times. So these are open pit mines. These are not the underground mines. So that is a plus and that is a negative also. From human factor, that is a plus, because that is a very dangerous thing when you go into the underground mine. So these are open pit mines. But I think the other thing, if these are really there, so we are open, and we should work together, because we live in the same country and we have the same objective.
Absolutely.
Whether we are in the government, whether we are in the private sector, whether we are working as a volunteer organization, as NGOs. So I think this is the benefit of these kind of discussion and the forum that we can actually share the thought process. Now, coming back to your question, I think that's what I said. The very short answer is that we are just discussing the idea. What we are agreeing with the Chinese companies and with the other stakeholders. The lenders are obviously very much concerned, because this is a complex project, doing retrofitting and changing the things, and as you have said, the logistics and opening up the mines, expanding up the mine. So what we are discussing right now is doing a detailed feasibility study by an independent international consultant. So that is the idea. We'll do a feasibility study, which will obviously include the transportation, which will include the environmental aspects, evaluation of environmental assessment, and the financial technical feasibility. So everything will be done. This idea is just at the stage of concept now. So that's I think the very short answer to that. And on this environmental pollution side, as I said earlier, at least to the extent of plants, we are sure they are compliant with the international World Bank IFC standards. We need to see. I'm not aware. Maybe my DG Thermal could add to it that what kind of precautions they have taken and what kind of environmental assessment they have done on the mining side. So maybe you can add something. So what precautions have been taken?
It is, Bharat Sir highlighted the key points very shortly responded. Number one is the land. Land is not taken away by the project companies. So far, the mines developed in that area, it is comprised of 1 square kilometer. And as per the project agreements, land is reclaimed after mining is finished, and simultaneously it's being reclaimed and it becomes agricultural land. And number of trees grown over there during this passage of time, you can compare previous numbers and now numbers. That's very much visible that number of trees and vegetation has been more than the previous one. And that is the part of the project agreements. That's once they abandon the mine, they will reclaim the land and hand over to the original people who owns that. Number two, there were droughts in the past. 10 years back, there was a huge migration. 30 people migrate to all over the Sindh. But since last 10 years, no migration was there. Regarding diseases, number of death rate 10 years back and today, that has been decreased to almost zero. Infrastructure, roads has been developed, hospitals has been developed, even a university has been developed over there, engineering university in Miti. There was no concept in the third, but now there exists NED universities grant over there. Again, huts have been taken away from those people, it's not so. Around 300 houses have been developed, 2 canal each. And that is in their house, there's 2 huts over there, 1 RCC, 2 bedded rooms over there. But huts are already provided there so that they may not be affected. So this is in the program. Again, jobs has been provided to them. Above all, in these projects, preferred shares has been given to the landowners, original people living over there and those who are affected. Now, as per our numbers, as per the record provided by government, saying no one is jobless over there. Those people who are affected. Every house has been offered minimum 2 jobs in progress. So these are the things. And again, regarding mining, as Shahja Saab said, ESI has been done, and SEPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is continuously monitoring the standards. Above all, now desalination plants are there. Previously, in 10 years back, especially the women go 10 kilometers away from their houses and take water for their drinking purpose. Now, drinking water is provided at their houses. This is the change over there because of these projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My next question has 2 parts. I will address the first part to Malik Saab, and then Badr, I'll come back to you for the second part. Malik Saab, we've seen this situation from every possible facet. You know climate, you know development. As a former federal minister, special advisor to the Prime Minister on climate change, we recognize that political buy-in is incredibly important. But we'll come to that. But clearly we have, from what I hear from Badr and also what we heard from DG Kolkap, is that this is development, perhaps development that has gone a little awry. In that it's not perhaps community oriented or doesn't really meet the needs. What would you say is the key missing ingredient, and how do we need greater political buy-in? Leaving aside the whole question of finances and dynamics, but how do we make this a more not just a just energy transition, but also a successful one?
I think that's a very good question. I think the important thing we raised, I think we raised it in the previous seminar also, is that on paper everything is written. You look at the EIAs and everything, they will have all the commitments over there, and they will show you very fancy videos of how everybody is very happy over there. But on ground, we had videos in the last seminar which people were complaining of, and then very small legal complaints that the water filtration plant is not working for the last month or so, or 2 months. Now, for those people over there, that's a matter of life and death. For the company, it's a matter of a few thousand rupees being paid at the right time and getting it done. And I think for the government, it's just a matter of the relative government officer being a little caring about what's happening on the ground. And then it doesn't take much to do that. And I think if we once had a project in which we tried to address an issue something like this by having a third party civil society monitoring body attached to the project. So what that body used to do was, and I think it was in Tirthal, when they were trying to lay a gas pipeline through there. EIA was done, but the local people were very concerned that, what is written in the EIA will not be implemented. So this third party civil society body was created, which ensured that whatever you're writing and whatever the government is approving in the EIA will actually also get implemented. And I think that's sort of a thing for a project which is so important for Pakistan as Salpol is. I think that sort of thing should be done. We should create a civil third party, civil society body, which should be ensuring that whatever the companies have agreed to in the EIAs is actually being implemented. And I think it's a small step, but it can ensure that a project of this magnitude, which has got so much potential and promise for Pakistan, does not get berated because of a water filtration plant not working. As I said, for those people, it's a matter of life and death that they don't have water to drink. And on the other side, the issue is not that complex. On the other issue of political commitment, I think firstly we need, the issue with the climate change world, and I've been in it for the last 20 years, and you will second me on that also, is that the jargon keeps on changing every year. It would be the same thing being done, but very different. So this jet fee, nobody will know in Pakistan what a jet fee is. But they will know if you explain to them that it's just a group of countries trying to help the government with concessional finance to, go from coal towards renewable energy or towards the cleaner fuel. But there has to be somebody who keeps up with the jargon. And unless you know the jargon, you're not in the game. So I think it's very important to keep, and I think, I mean, tell you very frankly, I think that's one of the tactics which is used in the climate negotiation to offset the developing countries negotiators. Absolutely. Because the developing countries, negotiators are very limited in capacity. They don't know, how to keep up. By the time they get to the jargon has already moved on to a new buzzword. So I think we should have a point person for deciphering the jargon in climate negotiations. And that happens, these are not complex issues. Yeah. They're very simple issues. But when the jet fee is thrown on the Prime Minister's office, they will all, be very shocked that what is this jet fee coming to us? It will create a panic. I think it is important to keep up with this, and it's our responsibility as a country which is in these negotiations to keep up.
Before I come back to you, whether the colleague at the end would like to, could you please also introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Aisha Khan. I'm a development economist. I'm executive director of RPI, which is a piece in the institute. About 3 to 4 years ago, I visited that whole project, and I mean, they are doing an excellent job. I think we're discussing political economy. There's always a trade-off, but what I've seen in Pakistan is pockets of highly neglected areas like that, and this is all around the country, from the mountain areas to wherever. It's large projects like these, when they go there, and I would agree with Chief Gulsa, that, I mean, I have seen firsthand the open mines. I have seen firsthand the difference in the livelihoods of the people. Of course, there are health issues and concerns. I don't know how well the standards after 3-4 years are maintained in terms of implementation. I think that's the challenge in Pakistan. Kind of the continuity of when a new project starts, everyone is very mindful of the checklist, but then slowly, it's not quite there. I know, of course, one has to carefully observe the trade-off between, the fossil fuels, the carbon emissions, and then the benefits. And what I have observed firsthand, and I think, it's a long debate, but the benefits of the project far outweigh the negative impact. I mean, the negative impact accrues over time, so 20 years down the line. And of course, we are, as environmentalists and supporters, we would encourage kind of a phase out or a phase down. But having said that, I just wanted to place on record that I have seen, I wore a different hat and for the World Bank also as an evaluation person. So firsthand, I have seen the positive impact on women and on livelihoods, but of course, pollution in the long term is a risk.
Aisha, thank you very much. I mean, the beauty of these dialogues are the opposing points of view that we're getting. So thank you very much for all your openness. But they're coming back to you, and I think this was an excellent segue because you were highly critical. Aisha says, no, it's not so dire. But what strategies do we need, Badr? Like, what strategies do we need to foster support? And how do we create more of a unified platform for action amongst the key stakeholders?
I think first and foremost thing that Pakistan government and the state actors need to do is to look at the process of environment impact assessment reports. That's very, very key document. Once that document is made, it's very, very difficult for the communities to, or for the civil society to raise any objections or any questions for the project. The project will go ahead nevertheless because you have a document that has given it a go ahead. But how that EIA is actually done, who pays for it, who does it? Most of the time in government projects, the state itself pays for the EIA. Or if it is a private sponsor, that private sponsor will pay for the EIA. So if I am paying for EIA, I will like an EIA that does not really go very far from what I need.
Yeah.
And my government colleagues here, they can mention to me one EIA on the basis of which any single project in any sector in Pakistan was rejected. In any sector. Let's leave alone the energy sector. So it's a very blind, very weak document. And I have gone through at least 20 EIAs of different energy projects. 70%, if not more, of their contents are just cut based from other reports. Because they're done by lazy consultants who do not have really great expertise, and they are not really well monitored and well supervised. I'll give you the EIA of Kharkor Railway, and then I'll give you the EIA of Ravi Urban Development Authority. 50% of them will read the same. And these are entirely different projects in two different sectors. So, and now we have also added S into it, which means social impact. And who does that social impact? In Kharkor Railways projects EIA, some people from Lahore went to do the EIA in Thar. They do not know anything about that. I'm really sorry to say this. All my colleagues have gone who were saying that they've gone to Thar, they've gone there only once. IUCN given a clean sheet to the water that is being dumped outside the mines into an open pit, and they gave it a clean sheet. They said that it is a new resting place for migratory birds in Pakistan, and it's toxic water. It's laden with coal. How can birds survive in that? And we have seen videos of people fishing in that pond. There are no fish, I can assure you. I have been there only 6 months ago. There is absolutely not a single fish in that. The boats that were used in that advertisement, they are all broken down now. We have photos of it. We have videos of that. And Malaka Minas themselves have seen that video. So I think on one level, we need to strengthen ESIS. And on the other level, we need to have a platform. I do not know what shape or what form that platform will take, in which community is heavily included, is like given a clear and very dominant voice, if I say, in monitoring those projects. We're not saying don't bring development to that. We are only saying bring development to Thar in a way that does not like violate or destroy the very fragile ecosystem of that area. And it's not just the ecosystem. Thar is only one of the 2 districts in Pakistan which has almost a parity of Muslim and non-Muslim population. You bring roads to there, there will be a large influx of people outside there. And already Tharis are complaining that all kinds of people coming here and the traditional harmony and the traditional balance in the Hindu-Muslim communities is really under stress. You have seen in the neighboring district, Umarkot, which is 54%, by the way, this very strange incident of a person being killed by the police in an encounter on Kasmi charge. So these are the problems that you bring with your unplanned development, unmonitored development, unsupervised development. Do take development there, but let's improve in the debate about this development, the communities that will be affected. The civil societies that are civil society organizations that are already active there, and the civil society at large at the national and the provincial level. These are my 2 cents.
Thank you very much.
If I may add to that, just briefly. I too have visited Thar and the conditions varied from block to block actually. So I think there needs to be a uniform standard of implementation that companies and project developers have to adhere to as well. So within block 2, conditions were much better. There were schools, there were hospitals, there were, the infrastructure was much better. There was a model ready there. But when we visited block 1 and the villages over there, some of the women consulted about the project, like they had no idea what was going on. Their social mobility was being affected because the area had become so secure at times. They were not even aware of what was happening outside. And then, compensation, there were, a variety of issues with compensation. Some people had been compensated, others had not. So, I think just briefly that conditions, regulations need to be the same for all developers, and this needs to come from the Pakistani government. Yeah. Thank you. Any other?
Simple comment regarding documentation. Yes, as far as power projects, especially trials are there, we are dealing with thermal power projects, especially regarding coal power projects, we are regularly every month we are receiving EIA report to be submitted to the concerned provincial. Yesterday, I received Port Kasimiliki Power monthly report. They submit regularly in Sahiwal, the projects they are submitting to concerned environmental agency to us. So we are checking, and there is a documentation. I can show you from 2017 and onward. I have the reports, monthly reports regarding Gorano Reservoir. With due respect, I'm not opposing him. His point of view is well respected. Again, now what Block 2 has done, now they are re-injecting the same underground water to the mine area. Again, I'm telling you, after 3 years, environmentalists will again raise the voice that water should not be re-injected. It should be put into the reservoir. I'm telling you 3 years before. Because we have seen there.
Not 3 years after.
We're
already seeing that election is back.
And so many persons, me and Chandra.
Yeah, but I agree that. So. I will fish from there also. And I don't know what is happening.
If the government takes,
it was
if the government takes you there in its jet, you will definitely have fish.
No,
but if you go there in the area around Gorano, you will find no fish. Noor Bajir Sahab comes from Thar. He is a resident of Thar. He is leading a civil society organization. Then he can tell you that.
Yes.
But I just have a very, very one-liner comment. Probably things are not as bad as you are projecting. Things are not as good as we are. Yeah. So what you are saying, the ESI study standards, everything, I think these are the problem not only in the energy and gas. It's basically everywhere, and I 100% agree we need to improve this time. But again, when we go, these ESIs are financed by the Asian Development Bank, by the World Bank, by the IFC, and name any big bank or lender. So they trust and they rely on this ESIA, and they are most of the time. there are international consultants, there are associates which are doing this work in Pakistan. So I think if these are the maybe in some project, in some areas, there would be weaknesses. I don't say everything is perfect. But again, I think we are with you if there are some improvements are required. But I think they are not as redundant and as useless as I have gathered from you.
No, we have not, we have never
But
said
I
that.
think
We have never said that.
as a
We are
moderator,
not saying that.
I have to flex my moderation up and down. And my wonderful friend and colleague is going to now deepen the discussion because I think that we've done a very good job, if I can congratulate ourselves, on setting the scene and providing the context. So Khalid, can you please now take us deeper into the discussion?
So, thank you so much, Sophia. This presentation is to make I'll try to make this economic case for early retirement in Pakistan, whole retirement. I'll set the context, set the scene, and then we can delve into the discussions and details. Matt, if you could please. So, political economy of early retirement of coal in Pakistan. I want to make okay. Early retirement, it always followed by some innovative incentives. I mean, it should be followed by incentives. So this is the situation in Pakistan. About 18% comes from local plus imported coal in Pakistan. But the problem is that the natural gas reserves, they are depleting in Pakistan. Pakistan's demand is decreasing, electricity demand is decreasing. Utilization rate of imported coal plants have dropped to about 10%, and in some cases around 0% in June 2024 as well. Due to this economic crunch, there is economic coal moratorium in Pakistan. However, as pointed out by Shmedla Saab, Pakistan is making a case for building committed coal plants and planning to convert to third coal. These are some of the agents involved in power sector of Pakistan, particularly consumers. On consumers and consumer demand is decreasing around 12% on year-on-year basis. Around 86% are domestic consumers in Pakistan. Around 11% are commercial, 1% are industrial, and 1% are agriculture. This is very important because the demand is decreasing in Pakistan, and we have done these long-term purchasing power agreements with all these plants, particularly the coal and imported coal ones. When the demand is decreasing, this will increase per capita capacity charges for those who are still connected to the grids. And in terms of consumption, 50% comes from residential consumers, 9% comes from commercial, 20% comes from industrial consumers. And this is again the anomaly in Pakistan, that there are not enough industrial consumers on national grid of Pakistan, and residential demand is decreasing due to rapid rooftop solar initiatives. There is an increasing marginal cost of capacity expansion or capacity being idle in Pakistan. So as soon as we go into the future, more and more solar rooftop, it will decrease the national grid's demand. And if we keep on expanding the capacity of national grid without incorporating more industrial demand to the grid, our energy economics would continue to suffer. Second agent in our power sector is producers. Coal plants are financed by mostly private investors or international companies, mostly in G2G sovereign agreements. The utilization rates again have been dropped. Industrial consumers will require more cleaner power supplies in future to remain competitive. I'll explain it in next slides. Third important layer is the government. The government is planning integrated energy planning now with the inception of IDSAP plus TSAP. But there is a concept of integrated economic planning because electricity is a derived demand. We need to see that what economic drivers they are driving those demands. So we need to have economic planning, and then we need to have energy planning or cost planning. Then there is a least cost planning versus strategic projects. Obviously, the IDSAP they adopt this least cost planning whenever they adopt to have new project coming into the fold. But there are some strategic projects, particularly in terms of nuclear, in terms of large hydro dams, which are expanding our capacity. Then there is short-term excess versus short-term, long-term excess. Back in 2017, Shah Jahan Mirza Sahib is very right that there was load shedding, there was energy crisis, but we planned it in very for short-term years. We built this capacity, we didn't plan it according to the economic needs or economic forecasts were wrong in that regard. So we need to plan it in terms of long-term plan, not the short-term horizon. And then the debates comes to our transmission constraint, system stability, because coal is a base load plant, nuclear is a base load. Our transmission system is well suited to transmit these power plants, but the world is changing. We need to invest in our grid system as well, so that we can sort of tackle these upcoming problems as well. And then power capacity expansion as a mean of financial investments. We use power sector as a mean to bring investments into Pakistan without realizing that we are building our capacities, which would get idle, and then we have to pay these capacity charges, and then we are in capacity trap. And next is fourth very important player. These are external players, friends like GIZ, development partners, and some external initiatives such as climate Paris Agreement, global climate governance. As climate adversities will increase, there will be more pressure to decarbonize, early retirement of coal initiatives. Narrative on climate justice and finance also require decarbonization. And then IFIs, as we go in deeper into climate adversities, IFIs will not finance these dirty projects. They will finance the clean initiatives. Okay, again, planning in Pakistan, we do planning in terms of planning from crisis to another crisis. Like in 2007 to 2015, we planned for accessibility. We planned for load shedding. We've expanded our capacities. We signed long-term PPAs just to sort of tackle circular debt. And the solution to accessibility crisis brought us to affordability crisis, which is right now. Tariff has increased. We do not have this least cost plan. We have capacity payments. And after and to solve this affordability crisis, based on third coal conversion to third coal, maybe in 5 to 10 years, we will get into another crisis, and that would be a sustainability crisis, where our trade would be linked with cleaner power supply. So we need to have a long-term integrated planning into focus, so that because the short-term horizon, we have seen the burn of short-term planning in terms of increased electricity crisis, and right now we are in it. So energy economics. In terms of energy economics, capacity charges of imported coal and local coal combined, they are around 700 billion rupees. So which is huge, and which is taking a toll on our tariff system. In terms of capacity charges of imported coal, if you compare it with 2015 to 2014 to 24, you'll see that there is an exponential increase in Sahiwal, in Port Qasim, and Hub. Earlier, when the PPAs were being signed, the tariff was determined. In 2015, the capacity charges were 3.3 rupee per unit, and now it has increased to 10.3 rupee per unit for Sahiwal, and it has increased to 12.4 rupee per unit for China Hub. And again, if you see the local coal plants, you see the same case. Thal Nova plant, when it was being signed in 2015, capacity charges were 3.6 rupee per unit, and now it has increased to 12.9 rupee per unit. If these are indigenous resources, why there is an increase in terms of capacity charges? Because these are indexed with dollars, and we have taken loan, and still we are counting them as an indigenous resources. These are not indigenous. Maybe these are indigenous in terms of fuel, but these are not indigenous in terms of investment. So we need to look into that as well. And because our economy is linked with energy crisis, as the energy crisis would get worsened, the economic condition would take these capacity charges to more higher level as well. Yes, the colleagues are right that we have young coal fleet. if you see all the coal power plants, they have on average about 26 to 28 years of PPA duration left. This is again a problem for Pakistan if we want to retire these power plants. Utilization rate, they are decreasing. This is the data for July, for June 2024. If you see, Sahiwal utilization rate was in April was 2%, increased to 26%, and now it is around 43%. But for Port Qasim and China, it is not more than 10%, which means they are kept idle and the capacity is not being utilized, which is again financial cost. This is the data for Gwadar coal plant being planned in Gwadar. If you see the Sinoshore's fee, back in 2018, it was $2.1 million. Now it has increased to 32.56 million in 2024 because there is financial crunch in Pakistan and the cost to finance coal is increasing and it has increased exponentially. Again, fuel cost of Gwadar coal plant is that also has increased. Project cost has also increased from $292.8 million to $44 million. So in terms of financial cost, it will keep on increasing, particularly in the events when less and less financial institutions are willing to support and finance these power plants. Again, energy economics, as we have indexed these capacity charges with US CPI, exchange rate, LIBOR, you can clearly see this is data from China hub power plant. It was back in 2016, the capacity charges were 3.7 rupee per unit. Now it has increased to 12.47 units per unit. So what is the way forward for Pakistan is we need to have export-led growth. We need to import substitution. We need to have industrial growth. We need to have climate smart trade. When I say climate smart trade, Pakistan's trade, the significant portion goes to European Union. And this is a newly introduced initiative by European Union known as CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. If you see the fourth panel in these graphs, you'll see that the electricity in terms of carbon emissions is 1.4 times more carbon intensive as compared to European Union's grid. In terms of CBAM, what CBAM does is, CBAM is a trade restrictions, a tariff put on trades in terms of emission fees. If exports coming into European Union, they are more carbon intensive, they would be subject to carbon emission fees. For Pakistan, it is 1.4 times higher. For example, let me just a hypothetical example. Let's say if a textile importer starts to produce and wants to export it to European Union, if its cost is 100 euros per unit of export, it will increase to 140 euros per unit, which means that 40 euros increase would increase the export competitiveness of Pakistan, which would be gruesome and worrisome for Pakistan's economic future as well if we would not delve into these early retirement initiatives. Because there are long-term purchasing power agreements, we cannot sort of close down these power plants, but we need to find some sort of early retirement solution so that our exports will remain competitive till 2030, when the CBAM would be expanded to all these sectors. By the way, I met in Energy Ministry, the Minister for Energy, Lavarisa. He doesn't know about CBAM as well. So if this is the situation of integrated planning in Pakistan, we would not be in good state by 2030. So again, political economy, third is portrayed as a solution to Pakistan's economic crisis, but the climate adversities and climate commitments, they have shown that we need to realize that in future it would not be the same case. Again, provincial wealth, it is considered as Sindh's wealth. We need to provide alternatives in terms of maybe carbon credits, maybe solar and wind initiatives. And then there is a debate of affordability versus sustainability. If we want to make a case of affordability, we need to look into sustainability, particularly in context of CBAM as well, so that our grid is cleaner. And to make our grid cleaner, the one way is to look for the financing for early retirement. And then capacity expansion, again, sometimes used as political capital as well. Then there is a trust deficit between agents, players, and then misalignment of ministerial goals as well. Ministry of Climate Change, they are hell-bent on bringing climate finance to the country, fulfilling the climate commitments. But on the other hand, given our economy, given our energy crisis, the Energy Ministry, they are seeking solutions, particularly in terms of how to make electricity cheaper. So we need to have this debate in that regard as well. Lastly, political economy, again, stakeholders and power dynamics. Constitution is very important. In this recent amendment, there have been change in Pakistan's constitution's Article 9. The existing articles prior to this amendment, the security of a person in Article 9 was defined as no person shall be deprived of life or liberty as mentioned or accordance with the law. But now it has changed. Article 9A has been added to the Constitution, and it says that every person shall be entitled to clean, healthy, and sustainable environment as well. So this is a very welcome sort of development in the Constitution. So maybe building on the Constitution, we need to develop these governmental plans and policies which already based on least cost planning, but we need to bring into the environmental side, emission side to the least cost planning as well, because third coal is least cost right now, because we do not include environmental cost, health cost, or cost related to climate smart trade to it. If we add cost to it, it will not be least cost, particularly for longer term. Again, local communities are very important in terms of financial interest and investments, debt and financial cost. I'll not go into that detail. There are other factors as well, particularly in terms of trade and industry as well. So what we need to do is we need to estimate external cost of coal, plus the hidden subsidies that are being provided to coal industry. Third is tax exemptions. For all your information, the coal sector is 100% income tax exempted. Individuals working on the coal sector, which again is a hidden cost for Pakistan. CBAM and economic cost and benefits, 100% income tax exemption is there in coal sector. And then there is decreasing global coal lobby. There is decreasing global coal lobbying all over the world, because there is fossil fuel based lobby in terms of oil, because the Middle Eastern economies, but as many European economies, they are reducing their reliance on coal, the coal lobby would be weaker, and Pakistan needs to understand this. Do not build an economic case on third coal. We need to explore these alternatives as well. These are some golden handshake options, jet fees, ETMs, coal transition accelerators. The problem with all these mechanisms is that Pakistan's coal fleet is younger. We cannot afford to retire these coal power plants under jet fees, ETMs, or coal transition accelerators without making a very detailed economic case. But one thing is very important. There is an initiative coming that is known as Coal Field Credit Initiative, CCCI, and this is being funded by philanthropic capital. More and more philanthropies are coming into it. What CCCI does is they use carbon markets, and they make a case for coal retirement in carbon markets, and this makes perfect economic sense to Pakistan, as Pakistan's coal fleet is younger. The more younger coal plant is, the more carbon credits you get. So if this is This initiative is capitalized or operationalized. Pakistan can use this initiative, and this will make a perfect case for coal power plants, particularly done under CPEC. And then powering fast coal alliance, while we can highlight it as well. We need to have high emission NDCs and early retirement associated integrated with those, so that we can make a good case for climate financing. As of yesterday, our finance minister is in Washington negotiating with IMF a loan of $2 billion more on the basis of climate change. So it would be a good thing. Again, there should be an economic case for coal retirement, and there is an economic case of early retirement of coal in Pakistan. So again, these are Simon, just quickly, we need to formulate a just energy transition working group with the help of regional community, so that the jargons can be explained to the government as well. Second, we need to push for a national coal retirement plan. Do not retire it. We do not demand that start retiring it right now. At least have a national coal retirement plan in focus, maybe for the longer period of time. Our P2X Alliance for Industries and Chambers, capacity building hub for industrial growth powered by renewable energy, and to cater for CBAM regime, formulation of integrated plan for new energy vehicles. And lastly, we need to have economy energy charter. And one last request to SOBIA and our development partners, that there are some European countries who are trying to sell Pakistan the coal-related equipment when they are retiring their coal fleets. So maybe that should be discussed as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Khalid, you were brilliant. You mentioned several initiatives that Pakistan could leverage, and we have the pleasure of having Pallavi there. Pallavi, thank you for your patience and for listening in. You have a very good idea of the context now in Pakistan, and you've heard of the issues. You've also heard that the coal fleet is very new, and therefore Pakistan is perhaps not going to benefit as much as it could from multilateral initiatives like the Powering Fast Coal Alliance. So what role would you say initiatives such as PPCA or other Annex 1 developed countries can play in assisting countries like Pakistan in this transition away from coal? So what specific commitments or actions can be prioritized? Over to you, Pallavi.
Thank you there. Thank you for such a rich discussion. I've learned so much about the situation in Pakistan, and I'm here to just share some of the international initiatives which hopefully can help Pakistan on this energy transition journey. And I think just first and foremost, initiatives like the PPCA, of which we have over 180 members of countries, subnationals, utilities, and finance institutions, agree that no country should have to choose between the fight against development and the protection of the planet, and that each country has its own national path, and that to do this, public and private financial support is completely necessary to do this. So thanks so much for the helpful presentation there on some of the innovative finance mechanisms which are available. And I think I would just like to start on the innovative finance mechanisms available, as we know that this is going to be the key to unlock this, by blending public and private finance to deliver the transition at pace. And of course, there needs to be new models of financing, coal transition mechanisms. These will be unique to each country. You were saying how Pakistan has quite a relatively young coal fleet. And therefore, to get this in place, I think at the national level, how this can send the signals to the international level is a roadmap for a country's coal to clean transition, which involves planning at the system and plant level. We've seen with our members, planning at these different levels then provides learnings from each process, which inform the development of each other. Linked to that as well, regulators can provide clarity on standards that these transactions should meet, to help build that system. And there also needs to be a pipeline of projects to help develop, see where the money can go. But just on, I guess, yeah, what's available in terms of support. Some of you may know, last year at COP28, the Coal Transition Commission was established, which is chaired by the governments of France and Indonesia and hosted in the Powering Past Coal Alliance Secretariat, which is bringing together international organizations and countries to find new ways to develop and unlock sources of financing for coal transition in a way that ensures a just transition. At COP29, in a few weeks' time, we will launch a report that sets out the key steps that the world needs to take to enable an accelerated just transition out of coal. So I will make sure to share this with the group when it is launched, as I'm sure there'll be takeaways which will be relevant for Pakistan, and the work is due to continue, and we hope to be able to bring in more voices from this. And just another thing which is relevant to the ongoing debate right now. So of course, as you mentioned, I keep going back to the young coal fleet, but for investors to make these commitments, no institution with a net zero commitment will invest if a country or utility looks like it's going to keep building replacements. And I recall from the beginning of the discussion, I think one of the colleagues in the discussion mentioned that no new coal would be built in the next 10 years or no new plants. There was a statistic from earlier. Signals like this really send assurances, and as part of that, and as part of the NDC process that the colleague who just gave the presentation said, we've been working with our members on a no new coal call to actions where countries can announce their intention to not build new coal, which potentially could be an avenue that Pakistan could explore. So noting that that is the first and most important step to implement the energy transition and can help mobilize finance. I would recommend Pakistan making this important step, and the PPCA is looking forward to working with Pakistan on this. Last point, just to flag, is this year we've been hosting a series of solutions dialogues around the world to share some of the solutions from our members. Today we are actually hosting one focused on Southeast Asia in Singapore as part of Singapore International Energy Week. But we're looking to keep sharing solutions, have dialogues for countries to come to the table. So yeah, we look forward to working with you.
Pallavi, thank you very much. You mentioned the report that you'll be launching at COP29, which is probably more of a deep dive into what strategies countries like Pakistan can adopt. But if you could give us a preview of some of the strategies that Pakistan could adopt, you know, whether it's related to a phase down and not a full phase out, but it would be very interesting to hear what specific support we can draw on from the PPCA.
I don't have the report findings to hand, Sabia, because I can't pull them out straight away, but I can send them round afterwards just so you have them and you can share them with the group.
Thank you. Okay, that's wonderful. Pallavi, thank you for listening in. We would love for you to stay, but I know that you've also been online, so feel free to pop in, pop out, come back, whatever, as your schedule allows you to do. We have another brilliant researcher with us. Hania is here with us, and Hania has done a lot of work on innovative financing mechanisms, and I know that you have also a presentation to share with us, but it would be very interesting to hear from you, Hania, on what innovative financing mechanisms Pakistan could employ to support this transition away from coal and how these mechanisms can be utilized. I'd also like to check the level of energy in the room. If your blood sugar is dropping, we have a lot of goodies and tea and coffee. So please feel free to grab a cup of tea and come back. And Hania, does your presentation need to be loaded or are we ready to go?
That's okay, I don't have a presentation. Just
Okay.
need to speak.
All right, thank you. Over to you.
Can I start?
Yes, please. Okay.
So yeah, I think the problem with speaking towards the end is that a lot has already been said. So, you know, what I had planned to say, that has already been covered, but I would still
like to point out towards different financial mechanisms that can be used to retire coal and examples that we've seen in other countries. So for developed economies, they do not have like problems like us. Their economy is strong, so regulations are strong. So we heard from Sebastian, Dr. Sebastian, that Germany, it enacted and it had a coal phase out act that came in and mandated that coal plants were going to retire by 2038. So plant owners really did not have any options. They had to retire anyway. So they took part in auction and then, you know, they received compensation. That was, you know, a win-win solution for them, the regulator and the government. They got their coal retirement commitments, and then plant owners got compensation for retirement. Then with other countries like the United States, we've seen that they've got strong environmental regulation and emission standards in place. So recently, the Environmental Protection Agency in the US signed a bill which calls for mandatory installation of carbon emission control equipment, basically carbon capture, utilization, storage technologies in place by 2039 if plants have to operate beyond that. But since the cost of carbon capture and storage is so high, this is ultimately going to lead to early retirement for these plants because they in no way can afford carbon capture and storage and still be making profits and money out of these ventures. So these are, you know, some approaches that are being adopted by developed economies. But the problem in Pakistan is that our utilities are not financially strong, our off-takers, CPPAG, they're not really, the government cannot afford to buy out. So we have to resort to concessional finance and options like the JETP, the ETM mechanism, and, you know, all this initiative by what we heard from Pallavi essentially. And within that, we've seen two models emerge. So there's a cash buyout model, which is where, you know, refinancing entity comes in and buys out the remaining value of the plant. That basically includes the outstanding debt and the return on equity, the interest payments and equity it's by the plant. And then that leads to immediate retirement. So, you know, when you're coming in and buying out the plant and retiring it immediately, the cost is going to be very high. We run numbers for this for plants in Pakistan. And like Shahjahan Mirza said earlier, numbers are high. It's mainly because of the young age of the plant. So the average age of coal power plants in Pakistan is 6 years right now, 5 to 6 years. That means a lot of the debt has still to be paid, you know, about 5 years of debt. Repayment has to occur, and then return on equity is also to be paid to investors. And why is that so high? Because interest rates are so high at present. So we've got financing at LIBOR plus 4.5% or 4.25%. That amounts to roughly around 9% in terms of interest payments. And then when it comes to equity, we've got returns as high as 34%, especially for the third coal fleet. So for imported coal-based power plants, return on equity around 20%, 27%. For the third coal fleet, we've seen that return on equity is around 34%. It goes as high as it. So that makes the equity portion and the liability of the plant when it comes to investors very high. And for that, the number that we've come up with, they tell us that retiring a plant right now, a coal-based power plant in Pakistan right now, will cost us $1.1 billion to $2 billion per plant, the existing fleet. But that's for immediate retirement. If we go down, let's say we let the plant operate for another 10 years or so. So the plant is right at the middle of its power purchase agreement or the contracted lifetime, which is usually 30 years. So at this point, the debt financing has been paid off already, and you know, the equity investors, they've gained some value from the plant as well through returns. And if the numbers start working, it's not magic, it's finance, but like the numbers start working because they drop down to around $300 million to $500 million. So because debt, it's 80% of the project cost is debt that has been already paid off. The numbers become much more reasonable, so buyout option starts looking reasonable. And then if we go further down, let's say, and this is what we've seen in Southeast Asia as well, we're looking at the shaving off of around 10 to 8 years for plants, for pilot projects. And when we look at 10 to 8 years, the numbers are even lower for for Pakistani plants, they're about $110 million to, let's say, $200 million. That's, I'm rounding off, but $110 to $170 million, depending on the age of the plant and the size of the plant as well. So for Engro, the $1.1 billion figure is for Engro, and then for China Power Hub, which is imported coal-based, it's around $1.9 billion for an immediate retirement scenario. But down the line, when we're just taking off 10 years off of the power purchase agreement, these numbers are just around $200 million. Now, this is like, we're not talking about any concession of finance at this point. This is purely the number, what it would cost to retire and for the buyout to happen. But if we bring in concession of finance, we can expect that these figures will be lower by around 20 to 30%. But then we're going to be reducing the cost of capital, which is very high, like we heard, with concessional capital. So this is where the philanthropy, this is where the multilateral development banks can come in and offer you credit enhancement support, mobilization of private capital, money can be raised through sustainability linked bonds, and we've got transmission credits in place as well. We're basically getting a value for avoided carbon dioxide emissions. So with Pakistan's, as Khalid said, because the fleet is so young, there's a lot of potential in avoided emissions. That is huge. If the price for carbon is right, I think we've seen figures around $30 per ton. If that is in place, it can be a very good economic base because the cash flow will be much better for retirement. And then when we're talking about buyout, concessional finance, all of this is going to be incomplete without the commitment of plant conversion to renewable energy assets. That is a must, and that is something that we've seen in all JETPs in ETM, but we've not really been talking about it. Coal retirement is incomplete without recycling those funds into renewable energy projects. So whoever is the refinancing entity or the buying entity, they have to funnel those funds back into renewable energy investment, into just aspects of the transition, which includes reskilling labor at the coal mine, at the coal power plants, making sure that nobody is left behind and everything happens in just manner. So this will include rehabilitation costs, decommissioning costs for the coal power plant, and then reskilling or upskilling labor costs as well. And this is basically this is the portion of the deal that can be financed through philanthropies and concessional capital or grant-based funding through MDBs and these agencies. So yeah, this is what we've seen so far in the case of mechanisms and what has worked. In Southeast Asia, the ETM is in place, the JETP is in place. We're seeing market-based top-up as well as government-supported deals. So in Indonesia, where a lot of the capacity is owned by the government, ETM is being led by the government itself. And in Philippines, where we have a more open and liberalized market, we've seen really the market step up. So it was entities and developers with commitments to a net zero future, with commitments to decarbonization, who stepped up in the case of Ayala and the Ayala Group and the AC Energy Corporation, which is basically the energy development division of that group. They had a commitment towards net zero, so they stepped up and they brought in actually commercial capital and financed the deal for retirement. Both, we can go further into the details of that, but there are successful models out there which are working. But we just have to see which model is going to be the best for us. And for Pakistan, I think concessional finance is the obvious route. But that being said, nothing can be done without commitment to the government itself. So we're not talking about immediate retirement. We know that the cost is too high. Nobody talks about immediate retirement. But what we hear back is that no, it's too expensive. We know that it's too expensive. But what we're talking about is 10 years down the line, 15 years even. It will start making sense. The numbers will work out, but we have to start having conversations. These are tough negotiations. In Indonesia, they've been talking about retiring Cirebon 1, the pilot deal. The talks have been going on for about 3 years now. It has still not been finalized. So these are tough conversations. They've not really decided on the right financial mechanisms, who's going to finance what, and there's a lot of nitty-gritty that goes into it. So if Pakistan has to go down that route, even if we're looking at retirement 15 years from now, I think it's imperative that we start conversations right now. We do not have a direction from the government right now. We do not have any policy that, or any future scenario for net zero, even which takes into account coal retirement. So I think that's important. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what needs to happen. We need a policy map government which maps out coal retirement and subsequent replacement of coal energy with renewable energy. I don't think we're going to have a problem with that, because as of now, demand on the grid is shrinking. We are already in surplus, so we have capacity in place. But we just need to look at the right time for retirement and the right assets as well. So the third coal may not be suitable right now, but imported coal, we've seen utilization rates drop 10%, 13%. Maybe that could be, an opportunity. And then we've seen that, a lot of these plants, they've got pending dues from the CPPAG, from the government. So that is also an opportunity and motivational factor for plants to come on board. So just bringing everything together, I think the point to emphasize upon is that we need to start things right now. We need to set these position. And yeah. That's it.
So much. Thank you for brilliant answer and brilliant numbers and making an economic case for retirement. This will lead me towards Dr. Majid. Dr. Majid is professor at USP CAS. Dr. You have a recent study on coal gasification. Over the years, we have also seen a growing debate on these alternative measures, such as coal to gas, coal gasification, or coal to liquid, and its conversion. NUST has done this research. Given that, how do you see the political economy side of it? Is there any buy-in from the government? And how would that support the local community and people of Assam?
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, for inviting me here and for this informative discussion where we can see the government and stance and the public stance we can also see. And also I agree with the Hania, it's very difficult to speak at later. And yes, we done a very detailed study in collaboration with private organizations regarding the technical and economic assessment of the third coal gasification project. So if we talk about while we talk about gasification, there is a potential thing where we can use the coal, the local resource for energy applications. Like the government plan is to expand its fleet. So our task is to see whether this new technology will be implemented in Pakistan. So we have to see the technical challenges and the practical challenges. So what we did, we have done a very detailed and a comprehensive model for the combustion, because all fleet is based on the combustion. Like third, they use the combined CFC boilers, while they have the including coal power plants, they're using the coal, they are based on equal price. So we have seen the developed model for regarding the combustion technologies and the gasification technology. So in the gasification, we see that there we talk about the coal conversion. We have two methods. One is the coal converted to gas, and the second one is the coal converted to liquid. So in our model, we have used to convert coal into the gas. So we have compared a model between the combustion and energy generation, and we have seen the energy from the chemicals. So what we have observed that if we use the coal gasification technologies, the amount of coal required is reduced. Why? Because in gasification, you need to convert the coal into gas, and then you have to feed into the turbines where it can generate electricity. While in combustion power plants, it can use to convert to produce steam, and it can generate electricity. While in gasification technologies, around 60% can be used from combustion, which is used by the gas turbine, and then you can use the waste heat recovery using the steam and then recover the energy.
So what we have compared the fuel comparisons for these both technologies, we have seen that the fuel consumption required in the coal gasification is much lower as compared to the combustion. The second one is discuss about the water challenges, because in water, the mining, there is a water challenge, because when you do mining, they contaminate the different aquifers, first thing. And second one is that when using power plant, the water is contaminated. So there are how we can use the water consumption requirements in the coal gasification are reduced. But we cannot say that we can all completely reduce the factor for the coal for the water consumptions. It's if you can talk about we can compare the coal gasification technology required 4 cubic of water required, while the combustion power plant required 11 cubic water requirement for the power plant operations. Third, we discussed the economic analysis and how we can see whether which plant is compatible or not. So right now, what we did, we will see the economics of this coal gasification. We have seen that the calculated value is around 13 cents per kilowatt hour, while the imported coal-fired power plants, they are around 7 to 8 cents per kilowatt, while local coal, they are around 4 to 5 cents per kilowatt. So this technology is more expensive as compared to the local one. So we have developed another model in which we have cleaned all the gases and remove all the carbon emissions and certified. So we have installed carbon capture technologies. But the problem is that there is only one plant in the world where the carbon capturing is installed, which is in Canada, where it can clean all the gases and it can feed and it can emit clean gas into the environment. So that's very expensive, and we have estimated that cost about 63 cents per kilowatt hour, so which is very much higher. So if you can talk about this economics, the water and the energy generation. So in energy, the coal requirements were reduced in the coal gasifications, while in the water, the requirements are reduced. But if you can talk about the economics, which is higher, and because it's higher because the technology is very it's very sensitive, and you have to design on the local base coal, and the efficiency depends upon the because as all local coal is not the anthracite base, but it is a subbituminous coal. So the quality is very low. So that's why we have to see all challenges in this technique.
Yeah, Dr. Thank you so much. Before I hand over to Sophia, one last quick question. Are there any potential alternative use of coal as a natural resource, or do you consider it as we should let it buried in ground for the time when the CCUS is affected and has these costs?
Yes, there are more now suitable ways, like Shahjahan mentioned that in next 10 years we are going to expand this fleet towards the renewable energy. So if we talk about the renewable, we have talked about the variable renewable energy, in which the major portion is the wind and the solarization. So if we can convert the solar power plant, like we can, if design actually the third coal power project for 300 megawatt power plant. So what we did, we have done a comprehensive plan comparison around if we can install a 300 megawatt of solar power project in third coal, and if we can install a 300 megawatt of coal gasification. So what is the economics that we got? Around $90 million. We can install 3 megawatt, while for the coal gasification we will require $460 million we have to need for this investments. While we can get in terms of the unit cost, we can find around 3 cents per kilowatt hour, while in coal gasification we have 13 cents. So if we can talk about, because there is a window corridor in Saint as well, they are expanding the wind projects, and as well we can expand the solar. So we can use both technologies to convert these technologies towards the renewable side. And we can later on we can see how we can expand the whole thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mandir. That was brilliant. We'd love to get a copy of your study, make it available to us. Thank you. And the last question, and I know you've said as the last speaker is slightly different, but we're asking you very different things, and what you say is incredibly interesting. You alluded, Hania, already to the to stranded assets.
Yeah.
And there are a number of financial risks associated with existing investments, fresh investments that might be coming in. So in your very informed opinion, how can Pakistan really assess the financial risks that it may face? And also what is really missing, I think, in the policy discourse is the absence of an economic case for the energy transition. Now, I don't know if that could be a part of the policy map for the energy transition that you alluded to, but what we definitely need is solid evidence, for that. So if you could talk about that.
Well, on the subject of stranded assets, I think our present grid, the state of it right now, the coal power plants and coal-based assets, they're more at risk of stranding if they continue operation, especially the imported coal ones. So we heard from Minister Liwari Sahib a few weeks back that the utilization of these imported coal-based assets is up to around 10 to 13%. So if things continue, the status quo continue, there's no way that these power plants are going to recoup their investments based on the current situation of the grid right now and the limited uptake from these power plants. And then we've also seen this very amazing phenomena that has happened to Pakistan, the solar boom, the distributed generation solar boom, with so much of great renewable energy capacity coming on in just a couple of years, and more is being added as we speak. I think there's 2.2 gigawatts of solar PV capacity that is connected to the grid, through net metering, and then there's maybe twice that amount that is not documented.
The latest number is 3.2 gigawatts.
3.2. Okay.
End of September, it was 3.2.
So we can see the amazing speed. So 2.2 was back in June, and then we're just like 4 months. So we've got 3.2 gigawatts. A gigawatt.
Biggest expansion.
Biggest
expansion.
It's about 1900 megawatt has been added from January to 30th December.
So this is amazing. Like utilities, if you look at utility scale, we're just standing at 630 megawatts. But at the distributed scale, we've seen this, like this just took everybody by surprise, but there's no stopping this. So, by continuing and investing more in assets, coal-based assets, I think we're putting them more at risk of being stranded than, just by retirement. With retirement, they at least have the option of getting some money. With continued operations, they might not even have that. Like the capacity payments, if the portion of the capacity charges that are owed to these plants is just going to keep on increasing, or it's going to be passed on to the consumers through that tariff adjustment mechanism that is going to result in a higher price of electricity for the consumers. So yeah, I think these are considerations that we need to take into account. And like this is what the planner is doing in fact right now. I think everybody is aware of what's happening, but we need to plan in advance for situations like these. Otherwise, yeah, we're just going to have to resort to mechanisms, unpalatable mechanisms, like what we've seen with the IPP renegotiation case and the post-termination, basically. So in order to avoid situations like that, we have to assess what's going on the ground, plan for that in advance, and that includes, I think, proper grid planning, demand forecasting, assessing the need for new generation energy projects. And then for coal, when we come to new coal investments, I don't really see that happening because the government does not have any plans in place for new coal-based capacities. There's talk of retrofitting, but the financing portion of that is still, we've not really seen any information on that. Maybe Shahjahan Mirza Sahib can tell us more, that where is the additional financing for that going to come from, the retrofitting exercise, but I don't really see any new investment cropping up in coal.
Just a short comment before you close. This issue, which is actually this rooftop solar and net metering, this is becoming probably one of the biggest challenges for the grid. What is happening that this 3.2 megawatt, 3.2 gigawatt, they generate in the daytime and they inject most of it to the grid at rupees 27 rupees per unit. So government need to rationalize this policy, not to discourage the solar PV, but actually not to penalize the consumers who have not installed this system, because they are being supplied energy at 27 rupees when we have very cheap resources of energy and data. The second aspect of this problem is that all this 3.2 gigawatt, they come back to the grid in the evening. So we have to have capacity available in the grid to serve them for, let's say, from 6 to 11 in the evening. And that capacity is becoming a big challenge, because as she has said, that is adding a lot to the per unit cost, because that capacity is being utilized only for 5, 6, 7 hours in a day. So we need to balance this and keep on encouraging the solar PV, but we need to rationalize this policy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe we've done actually a study on that as well. Maybe we can talk more later.
That will be.
Yeah.
Government is thinking on it, but I think for political or whatever reason, they are not taking this step, which should have been taken, because 27 rupees is a huge cost.
Yeah.
And with the current prices of the solar systems, probably the payback period less than 2 years. With the current tariff structure we are giving to these rooftops. So, I mean, thank you.
I think Germany is one of the countries where rooftop solar is a major contributor. There are some days in which, basically covers the whole grid. I think that this solution might lie over there. We have heard from them on this particular issue. And secondly, I think Hania gave a very good presentation on actually the solution to what we've been discussing today in terms of how this is going to happen. And the Asian Development Bank, we signed an MOU with them on the energy transition mechanism in 2016 at the COP. And it just happened because, we met the Vice President and he mentioned that they are starting this new concept. And I said, we want to be, the pilot country. He was surprised, but, we opted, so they took us in. And then they've done a report which basically gives the options of 3 furnace oil-based plants, which are IPPs, around about 750 megawatts, which can be closed down. And, using the formula that you just mentioned. And they also say that the coal issue is that obviously there's the youngest coal plant we have is 6 years old. So the oldest coal plant we have. So, they still have time to go before they pay off their debts and everything. But on the other side, they say that if you cut down on that coal plant, you're basically shaving off about 250 million tons of carbon. Just to give you the context, Pakistan's total emissions are 500 million tons. If you just take this one step, you shave off 50% of your emissions. I think that's where the ICC, I heard it for the first time, the ICCI concept. The avoidance emissions can be capitalized for Pakistan, then you have a very strong case. But first you have to, and also you mentioned the CBAM. I didn't know that we've got emissions more than it is because I thought we've got enough renewable energy in our system already.
This is a big challenge for us right now, because with all this dirty energy, Pakistan's exports, textiles become uncompetitive.
I think that is what can, because I've been in government, the GSP plus for Pakistan is a very, very sensitive issue. It's linked with, now it's going to be linked with CBAM.
Yeah.
So I think the CBAM should be triggering the JETP, but first you have to make the government understand what the CBAM is, then the JETP, and then maybe, but I think there's a case for whatever you discuss over here, you have a short policy paper, which can explain to the government in financial terms, because being a policy maker, I understand that nothing shakes you up like a number, a dollar number. Yeah. If the dollar number is put forward that, the CBAM is going to hurt you this much in 10 years, and here's a solution in which you can shave off that doing the JETP or doing the goal to, then it can happen.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment, Malik Sahab, and I've always thought and maintained that your being at Glasgow was a good thing. The ATB colleagues were supposed to join us today. Sham Khattak has done a lot of work on the ETM.
Yeah.
Exactly, but the political economy of the ETM mechanism is also quite complicated. And therefore, it hasn't progressed as all of us had hoped it would. Unfortunately, neither Ehtisham nor Habib could join us today because they have a meeting with their new incoming country director. But we'll be sure to organize another session. This is the second development dialogue that we're organizing on energy sector related issues. And as you know that this type of political dialogue, policy dialogue is a key pillar of the partnership. So by getting everyone together, this is a way of, business to government voice, government to government voice, and civil society voice to government so that we can have more well-rounded policies and better outcomes. I'm going to give the floor to Badr, but you're going to be a good boy and be short.
Yeah. I just want to highlight two points. One is the availability of finance for the renewables, and the opposite side is the unavailability of finance for coal development. I'll just give you two examples. One is that Angro has made an agreement with Nizam Bank for 100 billion rupee investment in coal mining expansion. That has not gone ahead for the last 2 years. Similarly, all the coal power plants in Pakistan, whether they are imported coal or local coal, all of them are facing serious financial problems.
Yeah.
So what do we want? Do we want to complicate these financial problems, or do we want to need to go to the alternatives which are available and which are much easier to have? So this is point number one. Point number two is just a plea, just a request. I recently read a speech done by Arundhati Roy on Palestine and Israel, and she said one thing which like stuck in my head. She said that the states are looking at the clock, but the victims of the state policies are looking at the calendar. So who will win? Those who are looking at the clock or those who are looking at the calendar? So I think states need to change their mindset. They need to look at the calendar, and the calendar is telling us that renewables is the future. Coal is the past. Thank you very much.
Golden words. Thank you very much.
Yes, can I take half a minute more? I think, let me, one suggestion. I think nobody is here from Ministry of Climate Change.
Unfortunately.
So I think what STPI works with them a lot, I always say this on every forum. Probably they need to be more active and more engaging with the stakeholders because they are in the lead from the countryside. So I see them least in these kind of discussion and everything, although they are leading the country's initiative of this climate commitment. Second thing, I think what I can say on behalf of the PPIB and the power division in the Pakistan. Nobody is interested to promote the coal projects and the coal consumption. What we are seeking, we are in a situation, we have landed in a situation, there are ground reality. So what we are seeking, what is the best way to get out of this situation so that we neither compromise the environment, nor we get into a situation which we were in 2013, because when we closed down these power plants, we need the generation to compensate that. So there is a twofold investment. One is the closing down if we compensate these power plants, and the second is that we need to bring in alternate generation into the grid. So I think that's the intent. Wherever I go with this intent. I said in my talk also that I come as a learner, as a student, so that maybe we can contribute something to the forums where these policies are made. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to have a policy, sorry, Aisha, I'm sorry. We're going to have a policy brief that flows from this discussion today, and this will serve to inform all our stakeholders. We have a very exciting project coming up, the digitalization and decarbonization of the grid project that will be implemented by German Development Cooperation in Pakistan. So this is something, it'll go, I think, a long way with the energy management part of the equation that has been a challenge for us. And perhaps the one piece of homework that I would be taking away on behalf of the partnership is perhaps this work on really developing this policy map and at least the economic case for stranded assets in this country. With this, I would like to invite our cluster coordinator, the wonderful Wolfgang Hesse, for his closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Would you allow me to go over there?
Absolutely.
To improve visibility?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. And I can say that this was one of the most interesting discussions around this topic of securing energy vis-a-vis fulfilling international climate obligations. And I want to say that I just see two sides here of the same coin. Or you also could say we are all sitting in the same boat, and basically we are going together towards the same direction. It is just the route we want to take which differs. Yeah. And this gives me a lot of hope, because this is very normal, and this is it's part of the game. In every country struggling with these problems, you have different sets of interests, and the challenge is to get people together around the table, discuss the various interests, and come to a conclusion and a way forward. Yeah? Jargon. I think you have mentioned it. It is true. With every change in the staff structure of an important unit, and after important international conferences, you have new buzzwords, new abbreviations, which you really have to familiarize yourself. And it is quite an important part of our work as a development organization to ensure that this is conveyed, the messages of these abbreviations, of these buzzwords, and whatever is conveyed. So we call it capacity development, and it's a big and important part of our work. I would like to. How much time do I have? A lot. No, late. I would like to point out the ETS, the emission trading system, and CBAM. The government is more conversant on this than you may think, because we had recently I would call it a fact-finding mission for a project on ETS, and hopefully by the end of this year, this is going to be commissioned. So the idea behind it is exactly that, what has been discussed here. If Pakistan does not get ready to fulfill the requirements of CBAM, exporting into the EU will be very difficult, if not impossible. And again, the timeline is very important. That's actually the good thing. We have time. Regarding the ETS, maybe not so much, because the project now is addressing or focusing or going to focus on the prerequisites of an ETS. The ETS system, you have to understand, takes anything between 8 and 10 or even longer years to be fully established. But there are some preconditions which can already be addressed now within a 2 or 3 years project period, and set the foundation for for follow-on projects, and also we have not only GIZ which is addressing, right? So it is a solution. It's one part of a big picture full of solutions. It has been said that there is a dilemma. On the one side, energy securing; on the other side, these obligations, fulfilling of international obligations. Is it really a dilemma? Or in other words, do we really have a choice not to retire from coal? Yeah? Because, and this also has been presented very impressively, the internalization of external costs, and just take the impact of the flood in 2022. If you take this as an external costs of climate change, and you factor this into your economic analysis, the price of coal is getting almost, I mean, it's highly incompetitive. Yeah? And so far, I would say we should not call it a dilemma, we should just call it a necessity, an economic necessity to step out of coal, enforce or strengthen renewables, and give ourselves, the Pakistani government should give itself enough time for sustainable transition. Transition implies that it takes time, right? And it is every country is struggling with this timeline. There's the clock and there's the calendar, and this is really the dilemma, because the decision makers, they are in power only for a very short term. They see the clock and they make decisions which are, you know, populist. And the other decisions, they are more uncomfortable and painful. That's why it is very difficult, but it has to be communicated. Communication is a very important thing in the whole thing. And community participation. It is true that, and you don't have to, let's say, point out extremely drastic examples and then say, no, it's not like this, the situation is better. I'm talking about the depletion of natural resources, which form the basis of livelihoods of communities. The truth is somewhere in between. We have a situation where natural resources, the basis, they are getting depleted, they are getting less. And you have also mentioned it, that people start to migrate from one point to the other. This is a global phenomenon, and it will become worse in the nearer future already. So Pakistan has to prepare, Germany has to prepare, Europe has to prepare. And that's why the discussions, as I said, we all sit in the same boat. The discussions should be geared towards solutions and not take so much, how do we call it, the political economy. You have to take it into consideration, but don't put it on the top number one on the agenda. Be fact-driven and see the sustainability in the solutions long-term or medium-term. And if you have 10 years time, things become not so expensive as you think. Funds coming out of the coal sector, whatever, energy production, need to be funneled back in order to develop renewable energy options. And then you can see that at the same time, while you reduce coal-driven energy, you can increase the renewable part of it, and then it's maybe possible. Otherwise, I'm coming back to my notes. I would like to say that understanding and addressing the barriers to and drivers of the energy transition is crucial, and I'm sure with all the collective wisdom we have in this room and beyond, Pakistan can make its transition away from fossil fuels successful, sustainable, and just. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.